Good evening everybody, and it's 5:01. Welcome to Mount Beauty and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 27th of August 2024. Could I just remind you all, if you've got mobiles, please, as a courtesy, to put them onto airplane mode or throw them out the door, whatever you wish to do. Item 1 on the agenda is the recording and live streaming of council meetings. I'll get the CEO to read the following statement.
All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and to improve the transparency of council's decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on Council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine-Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you. Would you all please stand, and I'll just do the acknowledgement of the traditional custodians. Alpine-Shire Council acknowledges the traditional custodians on the lands on which we meet today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional custodians of the wider lands of the area known as the Alpine-Shire. We would also like to acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Confirmation of minutes from the 30th of July meeting. I have two recommendations. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Janus, Councillor Kelly. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Councillor Hughes, can you hear us okay? Technical glitches. Sorry? She's just gone offline. Back now. Councillor Hughes, can you hear? No, not by the sound of it. Not by the look of it either. You guys can see her on a much larger screen than I can, so keep me informed of what's going on, please. All right, we have no apologies tonight, apart from maybe the fact that Councillor Hughes cannot partake or participate in the proceedings at the moment. So we'll start with Councillor Janus on obituaries and congratulations. Item 5, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Just two items. Just like to pass our condolences on to Meredith Briggs on the passing of Dr. Roger Briggs from Myrtleford, who passed away recently after a very long illness. He was a caring and professional local GP for many, many years in Myrtleford. And so I'll pass out condolences to Meredith and the family there. And the other one is I want to congratulate Rebecca Piazza for 400 netball games with the Myrtleford Football Netball Club. It's a pretty good achievement and a constant, well-renowned player in the scheme of things. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas.
I wanted to congratulate the Alpine-Shire Waste team for being part of their soft plastics pilot stage 2 with half waste, and urge anybody who hasn't already got their red plastic bag to put their soft plastics into to work out how to get them from the information centres or the library.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to express condolences to Elaine Harrison family in Bright. John Harris, or Jacko, as most of us knew him as, passed recently. He was actually a lifelong resident of the Northeast, and in his 9 odd decades, he did a huge amount in the Ovens Valley in particular. Probably the biggest call out was that he was a founding member of the Bright Lions Club back in 1976 in Bright. So he'll be very much missed and set a terrific example for all of us. So condolences to the family there.
Thank you. Councillor Prime.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple from the weekend. The Dettering Mount Beauty A-grade netball team made the finals for the first time in 23 years. They were a bit unfortunate not to come away with a win. It was an elimination final, but a pretty big achievement for the club. I've played for them for many years and we've spent plenty of time on the bottom of the ladder, so it's nice when it goes up a little bit. And last night they held the league count for Toolangatta District, and I'd just like to congratulate Darcy Fallon on runners-up in the under-17s and Chloe Romans for runners-up in the B grade out of the whole league. So quite terrific for a club, and a lot of people spend a lot of time volunteering hours there to keep that club going. So it's a great achievement for everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor. Also, congratulations that we're back in Mount Beauty with a large gathering. It's great to be back. Good to see you all. I'll say that now rather than at the end. So thank you. Good to see you all.
Yes, understand why. I have one. It's an obituary, and it's one of your local past residents, Mr. Angie Rigoni. I attended the memorial service in Myrtleford last week. Angie was an OAM and late at Toowoomba, I believe, and then down to Lakes Entrance. He was president of the Tobacco Growers Council for a very long time and was pretty well instrumental in maintaining the tobacco industry within this area during that transition period and getting the best that he could for tobacco growers. When the government decided to, shall we say, chop it out. But anyway, he was also very instrumental with TAFCO, which most of you are familiar with. Right, moving on. Declarations by councillors of conflicts of interest tonight. Yes, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. There's 2 items I'll declare a general conflict of interest on tonight. Item 821 is the Community Energy Prospectus 2024. Given my employer is a participant in the electricity market, I'll step out for that item. And secondly, the Alpine Shire Sport and Recreation Master Plans. The proposal related here to Mount Beauty does have an interaction with my employer's AGL Energy's asset here in town, so I'll step out for that item as well.
Thank you. This brings us to public question time, which in this Shire is always looked upon with trepidation by some, but glee by others. And I do point out to every one of you here a couple of things. First up, there are governance rules about questions on notice. Governance rules include, but are not limited to, whether the item relates to whether the question relates to an item on the current agenda for the night. So it's up to the discretion of the chair whether they'll accept questions. That's one. The other one is that you're limited to 2 questions. It is also up to the discretion of the chair whether or not, if they deem that the question is derogatory in any way or tries to cast aspersion upon any councillors or council officers, then they will be also scrubbed. So bear that in mind tonight and try, if you can, if I'm asking questions from the floor, we do have questions on notice written, which we'll go through first, and then any questions from the floor, just please be mindful. We do have a very large agenda tonight. I know you're here for the public meeting. Questions are to be questions and answered, and then answered if we can. It is not a forum for a soapbox. Please bear that in mind. So we'll move on to the questions on notice that have been supplied to council already through the office. The first question is from Mr. Tom Cordis from the Kiwa Valley. And this refers to, this will actually be further expanded upon, this particular question, in item 8.2.3 on the agenda tonight. And it's to do with North East Water. In this instance, I think that the answers to these questions could actually be given now, so that it probably sets a scene for some of our discussion at 8.2. So I'll read the questions, and I believe that our acting director for customer and community, Ms Natalie Cook, will have some answers for that. Question 1, I'll read both questions. Is Council aware that North East Water states they are unable to support any new connections in Toowoomba South? And question 2, what is Council doing through advocacy, legal action or otherwise to resolve this issue and ensure that North East Water follows its charter and is able to support new connections in areas serviced by reticulated water within the Shire? Thank you, Ms Cook. Would you like to answer those questions, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Tom, for the question. North East Water has advised that there is no capacity for additional potable water connections in Mount Beauty, Toowoomba and Toowoomba South, and additional wastewater connections in Toowoomba and Toowoomba South. Furthermore, North East Water has advised that future developments are being considered on a case-by-case basis, and applicants should contact North East Water in the first instance to have discussion. That relates to the first question about whether Council is aware that North East Water has stated they are unable to support any new connections in Toowoomba South. For the second question about advocacy, I'd just like to discuss this in some detail. Planning, designing and constructing infrastructure for regional and rural Victoria is undertaken by water authorities. Planning for future and current potable water and wastewater needs is currently being undertaken by North East Water through a major master planning exercise that they're undertaking for 15 townships within their network. This work seeks to identify and resolve existing capacity constraints to support the Victorian Government's recently announced housing targets for local government across the state. However, North East Water has advised that new potable water and wastewater connections into Toowoomba South are constrained by a lack of capacity. They advise that works to increase the capacity of potable water will commence in the 2026-2027 financial year and be completed by June 2028, which will enable new potable water connections at that time. The wastewater upgrade works required for Toowoomba South have not been included in North East Water's 5-year capital works program, and there is currently no certainty around any timeframe or the timeframe for this upgrade. Until the capacity constraints for potable and wastewater treatment in Toowoomba South and Mount Beauty and Toowoomba are resolved, Council will likely be unable to approve development and subdivision proposals that require additional capacity or new potable water or wastewater connections. North East Water is a determining referral authority for the Alpine Planning Scheme for most development and subdivision proposals. Council must therefore refuse a planning permit if a determining referral authority objects to the proposal. Applicants are encouraged to undertake pre-application meetings or advice with council officers or North East Water to understand whether their proposal will be affected. Given this, Council will continue to advocate to North East Water and the Victorian Government to provide all necessary resources needed to address potable and wastewater capacity constraints.
Thank you, Ms Cook. And I'm assuming from that anybody who does own land in these particular areas that was thinking about doing should actually come into Council and have a pre-application planning process go through prior to doing something.
And they're strongly North East Water to have a discussion about how these constraints may impact on their process.
Certainly. Okay, thank you. Technical team, I believe Councillor Hughes cannot hear us or see us. All right, just keep working on that. We'll keep moving.
Mayor Forsyth, may I add to that answer?
Certainly, please.
Just for the people in the gallery, maybe people online who maybe this is the first time they're hearing this about North East Water, and for us that live in the Alpine Shire and the Kiwa Valley, for us it's not really good enough in regards to what North East Water, that they haven't prepared the Kiwa Valley well enough for the development, that there's not enough potable water, and sewerage, and I think people have lived here long enough to know that there hasn't been, and it's come to that head. And they finally have admitted that, and it's really not good enough, I don't think, in regards to North East Water not to be able to provide that service. There are, you know, Victorian government agency, and that work's not being done, and so we're in this situation at the moment that we're in. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that bit of extra thing, and please, as has been said a couple of times tonight, do not contact council on this. Please go to North East Water first, then come to council. See where you get to first, I think. All right, question number 2 is from Mr. Jonathan Vanseps. I believe he lives in Bright. This will be further discussed again at item 8.2.7 tonight, and it is to do with the variation on the contract with the cleaners that we have around the Shire. Again, I think we can answer these questions, which will form more of our discussion later on. Question 1, what will Alpine Shire do to ensure public bins cleanliness, especially during school, public holidays, town events, when the problem is most prevalent, is maintained, so that's cleanliness is maintained. And why were our already high rates unable to cover this basic service to begin with? And I believe Mr. Alan Rees, our Director of Assets, is going to comment or reply to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jonathan, for your questions. There'll be more discussions when we get to the item on the agenda at 8.2.7, but in response to question 1, it's important to note that the Alpine Shire has major peaks and troughs in visitor numbers, meaning demands on our services vary significantly across the year. And in anticipation of this, council officers have undertaken a mid-year review of the public bins and amenities in mid-2024, which has identified and necessitated the variation to the contract that was awarded in late 2023. Changes to the service levels are discussed in that council report, which we'll get to later on. And it should also be noticed that council officers consider the municipality's needs in totality, not just in Bright, when adjusting service levels. Of course, there are times when bins do get full, and certainly in between services, and council officers request that community members, when noticing this, please scan the QR code on the side of the bin. This initiates a service request to the service provider, and what does enable us to then arrange additional emptying and prioritisation out of normal cycles to be able to address this unsightly public dumping. In response to question 2, the reality is that service levels do need to be increased in order to address these changes in demand, and as such, in order to do that, council always seeks the services of suitably qualified suppliers, and so we did undertake an extensive tender process which resulted in the award of a contract in December 2023 to the SSX Group. And obviously tenders can only be considered for award by companies that do actually provide submissions. And so under those circumstances, SSX were deemed to best meet the requirements of the criteria that are needed to deliver the service. They also do have an office in northeast Victoria, and do also service some of our neighbouring municipalities. I can also advise that Alpine Shire Council has seen an increase in illegal dumping in street bins and additional rubbish as a result of these visitation peaks and troughs. And we also noticed it's not only in our shire where this problem is occurring, so there's a broader community behavioural issue that many councils are dealing with. So in order to address this, the servicing schedules needed today are vastly different to what they have been in the past, and council officers continually monitor those service level requirements, which then results in these sorts of contract variations in order to improve and increase the services delivered.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. Our next questions come from Virginia Vinden Price, and they relate to EV charging in the Keogh Valley. 2 questions basically, and again this will come up in item 8.2.1 tonight. Question 1, does the council recognise that there is significant community interest to install EV chargers in Mount Beauty South Toowoomba area? And what is the status of EV chargers in the Kibwe Valley? Again, I think Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Virginia, for your questions. In response to question 1, yes, Council does recognise the significance of the community interest as noted in those submissions, and Council is also supportive of the installation of EV charging stations in Mount Beauty, but unfortunately is not in a position to install one independently due to the significant capital costs involved, as well as the resource intensity of the installation, the operation and the maintenance of these EV charging stations. And unfortunately, these are very much related to the economic business case, and having done the analysis as outlined in the report this evening, unfortunately at this point in time, the economics just do not stack up for EV chargers in Mount Beauty. Particularly, it's not just in Mount Beauty, it's an issue across rural areas where it's a supply and demand, plus the economics of the capital infrastructure and then the maintenance versus the returns. However, public EV charging stations have been installed in Will Street in Bright, and this has been done through a company called EV Networks, which had a program funded by the state government in order to roll out 56 of these around Victoria. And they actually own these networks, so they own and manage and operate the EV charging stations, and then they pay council an annual fee for the lease of that particular land. In terms of question 2, as outlined in the report this evening, council will consider the recommendations from that prospectus, and that this relates to facilities assessed as being suitable for EV charging stations, as well as liaising with the community proposed suitable locations at council-owned and managed car parks in the Kibwe Valley. As a result of that, once council considers it, the recommendation is that council continues to seek expressions of interest and advertise and advocate also for funding opportunities to be able to implement those recommendations.
Thanks, Mr. Rees. The next questions come from Mr. Len Wilson, and actually they are not part of the agenda items tonight. However, as Mr. Wilson may not be familiar with the governance rules regarding questions on notice, I will put these questions to the relevant officer to answer, and just a question of the officers, are these answers actually supplied to the questioner in writing as well, post-meeting? No. They're considered to be answered? During the meeting. Thank you. Right. So a question to that, if I did not accept Mr. Wilson's questions tonight, would they be answered as part of a general inquiry to council by writing, in writing?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, let's put a line under this and we'll just answer these questions. We'll ask them and get them answered, and then that's the end of it. Simple background. In August 22, Alpine Shire Council announced they would be conducting a review in the management arrangements of the Mount Beauty Airport Management Association. Question 1, why was this review deemed necessary? And question 2, could you advise when the review will be completed? Who is Mr. Rees? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jen, for your question. So, by context, the review was deemed necessary at the time due to some operational requirements and I guess some discombobulation in the management of the airport at the time, which was sort of linked to a range of matters that were deemed necessary to be resolved. And so council did step in and provide a service to see whether we could facilitate overcoming those matters and revert to a more stable management arrangement at the airport. And as a result of that review, it has been decided that that arrangement that is currently in place has been resolved, and so at this point in time, council is not finding it necessary to make any further changes. However, Council is in the process of working through a new service agreement with the Mount Beauty Airport Management Association, through that process the Mount Beauty Airport Association have agreed that the preferred way forward is using the current model. So at this point in time no further action will be taken other than moving through that process of renewing the current agreement.
Thank you. Next question is written on notice is from Mr. Joe Fisher from Human Habitats. These questions relate to the land development strategy, which is item 8.2.3 on the agenda tonight. They are quite lengthy answers to these particular questions, so just excuse me 1 minute.
We have it in front of retail laptops. The routines. And then there's things like
You think that's a fix? Right, Mr. Joe Fisher from Human Habitats, and it relates to the land development strategy. So I'm going to get echo. Yes, I think so. Question 1. Why has Council not re-advertised or provided an updated suite of supporting documentation for this version of the LDS? And question 2. The northeastern side of Kiwa Valley Highway to Wonga South is labelled as a non-preferred direction for housing growth without any explanation of why. So we're getting feedback now. I wish I could sound like that all the time. Yes, can you hear now?
Community feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Proper engagement it is. So question 2 is basically a fishing question. I think this is going to Mr. Rees or Mr. Rees?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Joe, for your questions. I think there is an item in the agenda regarding land development strategy later on which will result in significantly more discussion, which will probably flush out in more detail some of the responses. But in response to question 1, why has Council not re-advertised or provided an updated suite of supporting documentation on the final LDS which has been recommended for adoption this evening? I think in short, Council officers have undertaken extensive consultation over the period of this project. We've also engaged some additional technical reports, particularly the bushfire study, which has provided some additional information regarding some of the constraints that the land development strategy needs to consider. So in short, Council is confident that the consultation that has been undertaken has been adequate. And also to note that there is an opportunity for further engagement during the planning scheme amendment process, which once, in the event that Council adopts the land development strategy this evening, this then triggers a second phase of the process where Council officers will then prepare a planning scheme amendment. That will then be an opportunity where community can be provided the chance to further engage and add some further submissions if they would like to through that process. So the door's not closed, and this is an ongoing process, and we encourage Human Habitats and anyone else to look out for that opportunity once that, in the event that Council adopts the land development strategy tonight.
Thanks, Mr. Rees. And I think the final questions I have written down here are from Mr. David Alfonso, and they are with respect to the updated land development strategy, which, as I've said, is going to be 8.2.3. And I think both his questions will probably be fleshed out in that discussion at 8.2.3. His question 1 is, has council modelled the amenity impact of directing the majority of growth into existing residential areas, especially within a formal policy against 3+ storey development? And question 2, has council considered rising house prices rather than just the number of sales when determining demand? So I think both of those will become part of the land development strategy conversation, and which will, yes, we'll have that at 8.2.3 when we get there. Right, at this point in time, we now open the floor up to questions from members in the gallery. Bearing in mind our governance rules, you have 2 questions. If your question's already been answered, or if the question has already been answered, then we will not answer that tonight. So if anybody would like to have a question, please, you simply go to the microphone over there, state your name and ask questions. If councillors can answer it, or if officers can answer it, they will. If not, they'll be taken on notice and they will get back to you. So please, anybody who has questions, thank you. Please, Mr. Dyer, I believe.
It's on, right? It's on, okay. Thank you. Doesn't seem like it, but anyway, can everybody hear that?
Yep.
Okay. This, I've had a bit of trouble with the CEO, as I've asked him to stand down on a few occasions.
Mr. Dyer, is it a question or are you making a statement?
I'm making a statement. And
No, it's a question time, Mr. Dyer.
Well, I have a letter from him,
Yes.
a registered letter saying that he's not going to meet with me. He reckons I'm too aggressive and too pushy or something like that. Well, I say to him, in Mount Beauty here, just before, within the last hour, I went to the public toilets in the main street there, just below the op shop, and it is an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace. And this is the reason why I've been coming to the meetings and stating about the toilets, and I don't think there's any time that I have stated them that a councillor or the CEO or the manager of assets have ever come and talked to me about them. I think that's absolutely disgusting, and that's the reason why
So your
I'm
question...
talking about, well, are you prepared to meet with me? That's my question.
No.
About the toilets, not only the toilets, the electric bike that was stolen 5 years ago.
Sorry, Mr. Dyer, you're off track now.
No.
All right, your question relates to the toilets. That's part of one of the agenda items tonight. What would you like to ask about it? Because we are going to be discussing the cleaning of them.
All right, when is that toilet going to be cleaned? And just about every other toilet?
Well, we're
in the
talking
Auditorium
about
Shire?
that particular thing tonight as one of the agenda items.
Well, we've been talking about it for nearly 2 years.
Exactly.
18 years I have been.
It's a refinement, and I really do thank you for being so vigilant in the various amenity blocks around the Alpine Shire.
Now, the trees that have been cut down around Myrtleford, I noticed just the other day, there's another...
That's not an
Fine.
agenda item, thank you, Mr.
It's
Dyer.
not on the agenda.
No, it's
You're
not, so
accountable
you're not
for
going to
it
get a
anymore.
question tonight. And I will ask to have your microphone turned off if you keep going.
Well, Mr Mayor, when I spoke about the 100-year-old tree, the pin oak in the front of Coles car park,
Yes?
when it was cut down, what was your words? It's been cut down. What are you going to do about it? I take that
I
absolutely
did not say
disgusting.
those words,
You
Mr.
did, so
Dyer.
you have a look at the Shire video
Dyer.
and you'll see that.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Uncorruptive and unproductive, not
Thank-
only the CEO but the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Is there anybody else in the audience? Thank you.
Sue Ryder. I'll preface my question with, it relates to a matter on last month's meeting.
Unresolved?
It depends how you look at it. It's to do with consumer satisfaction survey.
Regarding the Alpine Shire?
Yes, it was. I had a telephone call from the survey company,
Okay.
and I found it absolutely banal, and their name questions, and I just thought council can never ever get a good rating from the way this survey was.
Thank you. This is a commentary, and thank you for that feedback.
The question
sir.
was just who does the survey.
Right,
We didn't get anything written
and
on.
whether those questions have been vetted, that's the question. Thank you. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's definitely something we'll have to come up at the next community, what do you call it?
Survey.
Survey, yeah, satisfaction survey,
It'd be good to see the council have a higher rating. Can't
Definitely.
just the way they ask the questions.
definitely. Anybody else have questions from the floor?
Can I ask, is the council...
Sorry, just name first, please. Name, please, Faye.
It's on film.
Yeah, name.
Faye Mason.
Thank you, Faye.
Sorry, everyone. Is the council intending to continue with the green plastic food bags inside the kitchen? You know, because I know some councils in Melbourne are only supplying brown paper bags now. What is the council here doing about that?
We have an answer to that because it's something that's come out, I believe, from the Premier's Department, or she made an announcement about that just recently. And I'm not sure. Do we have any answers on that? No? So take that one on notice and
What's his space?
you'll be able to give an answer next week on radio, I think.
No, we won't.
Yes, certainly.
Russell Roberts, just a quick question on the photo.
Certainly.
Is it working well?
Do you have an answer for that? Is FOGO working well?
I think probably in short the answer is yes. Some months ago we did provide a report to Council updating the amount of waste that has been diverted from landfill, and I'm a little rusty on the numbers, but we're talking about hundreds of tonnes of waste that have been diverted from landfill into FOGO. So it is a success story. It has required some adjustment of behaviours and management of waste in the home, but also just generally raised people's awareness. So it has been a tremendous success from our perspective. I haven't seen the actual statistics from the providers, but anecdotally the feedback was during the first 3 months the contamination rates of Alpine Shire Council's FOGO waste was in the low single-digit percentages, which was significantly better than any other council, particularly at this stage of the program. So overall, very positive feedback.
That's good. The other thing about waste is all our waste is being trucked to Echuca. Our waste is being trucked to Echuca.
I think the microphone.
And we've got
It's off.
very... Sorry. Our waste is currently being trucked to Echuca with almost no sorting, which is a bit criminal because we're just putting everything that goes to the transfer station into landfill. So FOGO's great, but sure we can do better.
Is that just a general commentary or a question? Can we do better?
Can we?
Certainly. Thank you. Let's take it as a question. All right. It may become a KPI. Thank you. Anybody else have questions from the floor?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick one on the
Sorry,
audio.
just name first.
Jared Gray from
Thank
Bright.
you, Jared.
Just referring to the expected growth targets, would we not have to finish the neighbourhood character assessment for each of our towns before removing potential future growth? Because we're making an assumption that all of the infill will eventually, will satisfy that the character does meet.
Certainly, Mr. Ray. That is a question that we've asked of the officers regarding the land development strategy, wondering is it chicken and egg? We should probably have one thing first, but I could actually, we have an expert in the room tonight who might like to just give a very brief answer to that, if that's all right. Could I ask Manager Mr. Michael McDonough, please? O'Donoghue? No, Mr. McDonough, just to give a quick answer to that. And just introduce yourself to the people too, please, would you mind?
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Michael McDonough. I'm the Manager of Growth and Future at Council. The land development strategy has been prepared through my department, and as the member of the gallery has mentioned, Council has an obligation to plan for 15 years worth of growth. In an ideal environment, you would have the full suite of background reports like neighbourhood character that would dictate how development should look and feel, and Council has actually started that work this year. What the land development strategy is telling us is it's planning up to 2041, and based on a number of different scenarios, 25% of expected future growth will occur in rural areas. I think that figure is quite high personally, but that's what the land development strategy is telling us. It's also telling us that 75% of future growth will occur from existing urban areas, both from future rezonings and also from existing infill development. So development is occurring all of the time through planning permit applications, and what Council's work with the neighbourhood character strategy will do is provide greater surety in relation to infill development and greenfield development in the future, but that work will probably take 2 years before it's actually included in the planning scheme. So the land development strategy is very clear. It's expectations based on existing growth levels, and ultimately Council is undertaking a number of different projects that will refine how that growth looks like in the future. But in the interim, growth has been assessed against the Alpine planning scheme today.
Mr. Gray, if that, I see confusion on your face. If that doesn't totally answer your question, could I please direct you to the manager, Mr. McDonough, at some point in time? Would that do?
Thanks, John.
Thanks very much. Anybody else? Thank you. Certainly.
So Mary Pike, is it on?
Mary Pike, I want to ask a very quick fill-in about, which to do with the land development, I guess. What's the status of play with the provision of toilet facilities in the Toowoomba South area?
I'll get the CEO to answer that one for you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mary. Very simply, we've submitted plans for a subdivision through, and they're with the Land Titles Office at the moment, so that subdivision process is working its way through. We're on hold. We don't know what the answer is when it's going to be delivered. We have done some preliminary work to look at what the project will look like once we get the land subdivided and it's actually council's land to allow us to move forward to deliver. So we've got a project manager in house, not currently working on the project at the moment, but he is ready to go once we get the green light from the subdivision and once that moves up to the top of the list. So it is slow. We're just on hold now. We've put all the paperwork in. We're just waiting for an answer.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. No further questions. I would like to compliment the gallery on the respectfulness tonight, asking questions, and that's a good result tonight. I was thinking we'd probably be going over at least 1 hour of questions tonight. So let's move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is Chief Executive Officer Mr. Will Journey, 8.1.1, Tungarung Land and Water Council Local Government Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to seek Council's authorisation to actively participate in the Tungarung Land and Waters Council Local Government Forum. So the Tungarung Traditional Owner Group, which is represented by the Tungarung Land and Waters Council Aboriginal Corporation, is a registered traditional owner group for an area of land within the Alpine Shire municipal boundaries. And there is a recognition and settlement agreement and a land use activity agreement which sets out the rights and the obligations of parties when we work on Tungarung land. There are 14 other Victorian local government authorities whose land has some Tungarung rights over those. The Tungarung, so TLAWC is their acronym, has proposed the establishment of a Tungarung Local Government Forum. They've invited the 15 councils to be represented on this forum, and they've shared a proposal for terms of reference. And their stated purpose is quite simple, and it's to foster and govern a constructive and meaningful operational partnership between the Tungarung and local governments on Tungarung country, and to include governance and procedural arrangements. And the recommendation tonight is, as you note there, is that we note those terms of reference, that Council agrees to become a member of the forum and actively participates in the forum. However, that any financial contribution or commitment to the forum is considered at a future council meeting, which ultimately means that it will be considered by a future council, given that this is one of the last meetings of the current council.
So moved.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas, seconded. Councillor Keeble. Councillor Nicholas.
I think this is a great initiative by the Tungarung people. My experience working with Indigenous people and groups in the past has shown me that the long-term relationship and spending time understanding the perspective from the Indigenous people is really important to move forward, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get local government, the Alpine Shire, into that space as early as possible. And I also, for the gallery and anyone listening, we've talked about this long and hard in briefing sessions and etc. And it's the terms of reference and the forum don't force the new council to continue, so that there is an out clause if the new council decides to do that. But getting started, I think, is the way forward.
Thanks, Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I do like the 4 recommendations here, the first 3 in regards to becoming a member of the forum. I think it's better to be at the table having the discussion, and number 4 gives the CEO and the mayor who goes to the forums to bring information back in the next council period in regards to any financial commitments. I have one other thing to note. Can't remember. I might come back.
Certainly. I'll give you a chance. Any other commentary from councillors? Councillor Janus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it is good to have a seat at the table when talking to various groups that have an interest in our area, but I also note that there's quite a number of groups who have an interest in our area, whether they be on the north side of the river or south side of the river or from Dinner Plain on. So what I'd like to see eventually is a single policy in place where we interact with all of the registered parties in an equal manner. The Tungarung people have taken the initiative, and I note that in the local government engagement strategy, and it is only a strategy, that in Schedule 5.4, that this process should be led by DELP and with the various parties, and working out a reasonable way to improve the relationships with local governments and other parties involved. So this is a little bit about face, but I understand they have taken the initiative, and there are a number of other initiatives there too. Although the report doesn't mention any financial cost, we do know that into the future there has been a proposition put to 15 different councils that would require an ongoing commitment of funds, ratepayer funds, to particularly benefit either employment or other services by these groups. And that's why I say if we have one policy in place, and maybe this is something the new council wants to consider, that deals with all registered parties in an equal manner, and so that we are not necessarily spending ratepayers' money in an unequal balance, I suppose. But I do see in this instance here, it is a first step to have a seat at the table. But I do, I suppose I have to put it to the CEO, because I don't know who the new council is going to be, to caution for future costs on the ratepayer. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Janus. Any other comments? Oh, yes. Councillor Keeble.
I remember my thing. I was just about to say that I believe that the next forum is in March. So by voting today gives a fair bit of time to work through what that might look like in March time.
Certainly. Any other comments? Yes, certainly. Thanks, Councillor Prime.
Yeah, sorry, Michelle. What's opposite? agree we have to take into consideration that a new council isn't far into the future. We don't know who that will consist of. And I think it would be a different case if there was a financial obligation up front that we were committing a future council to, but at this stage we are not. And as Councillor Keeble said, I think a seat at the table at this stage is probably pretty important. So I'm good with that.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it's a bit of a congratulations to the Tungurahua Land and Waters Council for taking the initiative. You know, they've identified a process, they've approached a number of local governments and they've set this up. My hesitation, and I think a challenge for the Alpine Shire, is that there are at least 4 other traditional owners in our area, probably
laid out, but really as a little bit of background and a bit of context, what this exercise has done, it has identified 10 sites which are eligible and have met the right criteria for either community batteries or as energy power nodes. And what this does, in the event that Council does adopt the final prospectus, it will allow Council officers to ensure continued support for grant funding applications and to seek commercial investment to fund these proposed infrastructure projects going forward.
So moved.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas, seconded. Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
I'd like to start with some questions, Mr. Rees. I just wondered what the criteria are for making a site suitable for public electric vehicle chargers.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. So sites were chosen based on the following criteria, so an analysis of them. So the space that's required, both on-site and on the roof, for those on-site solar and battery installations. The existing electrical infrastructure, so if we did introduce solar, what is already in place and how would that then be integrated? What is the grid connection configuration of those sites? How is the facility actually currently used? So what's the electricity demand? And then also, is there an EV charger suitability? Does it make sense to consider that? And then the actual location of the various sites. So following a process of elimination, going through how each of our respective sites stacked up, we've landed on those 10.
So just to drill in a little bit further, EV charging in particular, I think as an EV user, and I know the other people I know who drive EVs have just left the room, but I think you need services there. So if there was a battery, say, deadering, people might stop and use the toilet facilities, but they want a cafe and there's a few other services that usually go with the charge. So I just thought that should get thrown into the mix when we're doing the final decisions. And then my other question is, do we have any use data from the Bright EV charger in Will Street? And sorry I didn't give you any notice about this.
I'm afraid, I know it did take a little while to get all the approvals to get it up and running. I cannot provide anything specific. However, anecdotally, when I do travel past there, I do notice that it is quite well used, but I don't have any statistics. I can come back to you on that.
That'd be great, thanks.
Any other comment? No? Okay. Councillor Keeble? Nothing? Any other councillors have any? Yes, Councillor James.
Just a quick one. Mr. Rees, have we looked at private buildings, or these are all either council owned or controlled or developed type land, private land, like the old service station, so to speak, that sell fuel? Are they prepared to be part of this, to put in areas for EV chargers, etc.?
Thank you, Councillor Janis. No, this is really considered assets where council is either a manager or has influence, so public facilities, not private land.
Okay. Were they not interested?
I don't believe that they were part of the initial scope, because we really only have influence over the areas that we control and manage.
Just going back to the questions we had on notice tonight from Virginia Linden Price and the commentary from Councillor Nicholas already in where you actually, how you decide where they're going to go. I think the scope has simply been at the moment on council operated or controlled businesses, whereas I think with our Climate Action Plan roadmap, there is a lot of chance and opportunity to have some collaboration and some partnerships outside of that, especially when I look at, and this is in particular answer to the questions on notice tonight, of the assessed sites, number were deemed suitable to host public EV charges, bearing in mind what the two councillors have already said. Dittering Recreation Reserve, you can't get a cup of coffee there, and the Mudgegonga Community Hall, if you walk out there too far, you're going to get hit by something. So, and the fact that the charges that you're putting are destination charges, not fast charges, which means that they're going to have to be there for a bit longer. So, from all of those aspects, I think that perhaps this particular, when officers do look at this, they probably need to look at a little bit, the scope being a bit wider, that's all. Councillor Nicholas, did you have anything further to say?
Yeah, I was just going to add that there's 4 Tesla chargers being put in the Woolworths supermarket in Brighton. So I think it's starting to happen that there's private enterprises providing land, and that's all.
Thank you. All right, we're back to the mover here, so let's put those recommendations to vote. Those in favour, please. Thank you, that's carried. And thank you, Councillor Hughes, I can see you quite clearly now. Good. Could somebody please get Councillor Kelly? It's 602. I think he's in the back room. Sergeant at Arms, are you here tonight? You've resigned. It's the end of the council term. You've had
Always get in the middle.
All right. Councillor Kelly at 6:02, rejoin the meeting. 8.2.2, Community Greenhouse Gas Inventory Report 21-22. Thank you, Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Mayor. So, by way of context, in October 2023, Council endorsed the Community Climate Action Plan roadmap, and one of the recommendations in that roadmap report was the development of a detailed community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And this is really to provide greater insight into key emissions reduction opportunities in areas of the Alpine Shire that are outside of Council's direct control. And so this report is really presenting the results of that inventory. By way of context, the key findings of what these emission sources are really related to on-road transport, agriculture and electricity usage. So the report provides a valuable resource for Council to work with the community to develop an informed climate mitigation and adaptation sort of set of goals that will reflect community priorities and respond to the climate risks identified in the roadmap. So the recommendation this evening is for Council to note the findings of this inventory.
Could I add a second recommendation to that, which would read something like, Council officers are preparing a scope of works to develop a community climate action plan and intend to brief Council on its contents before the 30th of June 2025.
I'm happy to second that.
So I'm assuming here, and you didn't actually say that Councillor Nicholas has moved?
No, not yet.
Not yet? But you're,
Yes,
well, you are moving the alternate motion,
I'll
aren't
move
you?
them both. I'll move the 2 points.
Move the 2 points, and Councillor Keeble, you're happy to...
I'll second it, but before I do that, can you read it out again so it can be topped up?
I think
Can you read it out again? Yeah, the alternate
Council officers are preparing a scope of works to develop a community climate action plan and intend to brief Council on its contents before 30 June 2025.
No, nothing extra? Right. Is there other people who would like to speak on this? Councillor Kelly is thinking. No, it's okay. All right, those in favour of the motions as read, with 1 and 2, can we put a number in front of them, please.
Sorry, Mayor, for clarity, are we then going to discuss the report?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, after the motions are moved and seconded.
After this motion's moved and seconded,
Then we
we can
discuss.
get. So we have a mover and a seconder for this particular alternate motion, then we can go back and discuss the full motion, if you like. We're accepting the second part. Those in favour of accepting the addition? Thank you. That's clarified. Now could I have a mover and seconder for the total motion? Thank you, Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Keeble. Right, Councillor Nicholas.
Right. This is a great piece of work where we have got, I guess, some evidence-based emissions from across the Shire, which gives us a baseline. So as we progress into the future and start really engaging the community on emissions reduction, and there's heaps going on, we'll get to see just how effective we've been. And what the point I really wanted to make is that, you know, governments can say they want this and say they want that, but it's the people who live around you who have to make the changes to make it happen. So each and every one of us needs to take responsibility for our emissions, and this is one of the ways to show that we're doing that.
Thanks, Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Keeble.
And I just concur with Councillor Nicholas's thoughts.
Okay. Any other commentary? Yes, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a reflection on this report. I actually, I don't think it's been a great use of our resources. When we look further into tonight's agenda, we've got the bushfire planning study, which really shouts out that we are in a high risk environment, and the risk of that is only escalating through more extreme weather events. And when I think about this inventory report, and I sit it next to, you know, this council has already made great commitments as an organisation to approach net zero. In terms of our community, well, you know, my view is that we've got state and federal governments that are leading the charge on that and setting expectations. I'd rather see our resources going to what's called adaptation, and that's preparing for the more extreme weather events and preparing for the threat that climate change brings to our community, our economy, and our livelihood. So I'm a little uncomfortable that we keep channeling resources into reports and things that are based on publicly available information that are intended for audiences that, you know, if you're a farmer out there or you're another business owner, you know, you can make your own decisions on what you want to do around your emissions. I think where we live, we need to focus on adaptation, being ready, and adapting to the changing climate, leading as an organisation and our own emissions, but also leaning on our superior governments to set the expectations for the broader economy. Thank you.
Just for clarity, Councillor Kelly, dot point 1 is just a noting, so you don't have any problem with that, even though your commentary is about why did we do it. Are you uncomfortable with dot point 2?
That's the second motion that's been tabled. No, we've already accepted that, and that's my understanding.
Right, okay. Any other councillors?
Yeah.
Yep, Councillor Janus.
Just, I know the statistics aren't in the report here, but they say that some of the greater emitters is in the agricultural area, and it's unfortunate we didn't have that graph, the pie chart that was presented to us there. But I want to say that as a councillor, I support our farmers as well. They, just because their emissions are a little bit, seem to be higher than others on this pie chart that was presented to us, they are an important part of our community and of our economy, and they shouldn't be necessarily seen as, you know, the bad people making the cattle and that making all this pollution in our area. And I just wonder, as Councillor Kelly says, we live in some extreme areas there, and how much pollution does a bushfire or a burn-off put into our atmosphere from time to time? And I don't think any of that was captured either, whether it was part of the brief or not, I don't know. But I think we need to recognise that A, we rely on transport very heavily, and B, our agricultural sector is a very big part of our community and our economy, and I hope that people don't try and target them as being polluters per se. Farmers are very good at managing their business, and the larger world market will dictate if they will take certain products from certain farms that don't meet the requirements. So they know that they have to work to a line of compliance. So I just wanted to make that as a passing comment. Although that paragraph's not here, but it's out there in other domains.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Back to Councillor Nicholas. Oh, sorry, Councillor Prime.
Sorry, snuck in there. Just on that, I've got skin in the game. I'm not a dairy farmer. I'm a beef farmer. I think there's a couple of others in the room who can relate to that as well. This doesn't faze me. We have our own industries who are guiding things. I'd also suggest that there are a lot of farmers out there who are very conscientious of these things in the first place. And I understand this is scientific based as well at the same time, and I also think we've got our part to play in achieving things, so I don't take it too personally. But yeah, I think, again, yeah, we've all got our own part to play in this. I think there's lots of contributors to this, and whilst I'm happy to note this and support council as well, you know, I'm also aware there's other industries at play here who are affecting and dictating how things work as well. But thank you. Mr. Jones?
Okay, I just note that we've added a word in there that council notes that officers are preparing a scope of works, and probably in relationship to the roadmap. Yeah. Okay. Back to you, Councillor Nicholas.
Yep, thanks again, good discussion. I agree with everything that's been said. The data is more detailed and that's publicly available, so I quite like it. Just drill down and you can see where there's some industry that has a lot of emissions, and I think that's where that's what can help the Alpine Shire meet target, suggest, whatever it might be. And on that adaptation, it's as important as mitigation, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So I think we should be working hand in hand. And absolutely, there's plenty of organisations working towards emissions reductions with industry, with farmers, with community members. So it's about harnessing all of that and bringing it together and trying to make the world a better place.
Thanks, Councillor Nicholas. I'll put these recommendations to the vote. Those in favour, please. I'm assuming those against, and it's still carried. Thank you. 8.2.3, adoption of the Alpine Shire Land Development Strategy 2024. Thank you, Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a brief introduction. There's a lot to discuss here, so let me just introduce the report and then we can get into questions. So just by way of background and context, the land development strategy shows how growth will be accommodated in the Alpine Shire up to the year 2024 and beyond. And it does consider projected population growth, future housing and employment or industrial land requirements. And in particular, the land development strategy focuses on the 4 service towns, which are Bright, Mount Beauty, Toowoomba South, Myrtleford and Popunka, which are expected to accommodate the majority of the growth. The other areas will be, I guess, the direction of how our rural towns and settlements will be expected to, forecasted to grow, are subject to a different report, which is the Rural Direction Strategy, which is a separate piece of work that will deal with those. So this evening we're really focusing on how we anticipate our urban growth to unfold. So probably a couple of things to note, as previously indicated. We have conducted a bushfire planning study, which was subsequent to the draft report for the land development strategy being submitted, and that has resulted in significant changes to the final land development strategy, as it does not support a number of those initial proposed urban growth areas due to the bushfire constraints. Those are outlined in the report. I think the other thing which also came up in the questions on notice is the reality of services, particularly for potable water and also wastewater, which, as indicated by Ms. Cook, we recommend that people in those areas consult North East Water and also engage with Council for a pre-application before progressing with their plans. So the recommendations this evening are for Council to consider adoption of this land development strategy, which will then initiate an implementation plan, and I'll hand that over to Council for consideration.
Thanks very much, Mr. Rees. Can I move and seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Kelly and Councillor Prime. Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to begin by congratulating the team on the work that's been undertaken here. This is a number of years in the making, and I think a way to look at it is that the work is never done. I think there was a really good question here tonight about the consultation process, and I think that Your Town, Your Future was a really big undertaking by officers and with support of consultants. And what we're tackling here is a medium-term outlook that will be tackled again and again as we go through time. So I don't quite share perhaps a concern in the question earlier tonight that there has been insufficient consultation or loss of opportunity or lack of opportunity in terms of where we've arrived at. I think if you take a medium-term view, we're going to continue to do this work and it will come up again. I do appreciate though that, I don't know if folk have had a chance to digest it. It's a huge amount of work. The frameworks, the framework maps, I think they're called, or framework, let me get the terminology right because I think it's useful to people. Where are we? The framework plans at the back end there are a really simple way to glance and get an understanding of what the development strategy is saying for your town and your future. I think the bushfire planning study is something that really stands out for me as what I would call a cold eyes review of the environment that we currently live in and the environment that we're trending towards. In simple terms, much of the area we live in, I think under the current state government and the planning policy at that level, a lot of our areas wouldn't be available for development because of the perceived risk of bushfire and the view that is only growing. If you do get the chance to read that study, a couple of things that jumped out to me there is that the increase in what they call landscape scale bushfires, so not just a pocketed fire in one particular little area, what they're calling landscape fires, which spread across all different forest types from grassland in through to dense forest. And it actually highlighted that where we live, it has some of the greatest potential for long landscape fires, so significant front sizes. One question I had around the study that I did want to unpack a little bit was around the CFA's involvement in that study. My understanding is the process was we did a huge amount of consultation and engagement, and then the CFA expressed a lot of concern about what that could look like. So we engaged this expert to do this bushfire planning study for us. It would be good, Mr. Rees, if you could just unpack a little bit the CFA's involvement in preparing that study.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. I might make an initial sort of observation of what unfolded, but then I might ask Michael McDonough to perhaps provide some more specific detail. So I think what we've learned is that I guess the role of the CFA has rapidly changed post Black Summer bushfires. Way back in 2008. There was a change in legislation that resulted from that. It then took some time before that legislation found its way into the role of the CFA as I guess, a determining authority. And then there were subsequent updates to legislation in 2017 that's re-strengthened, I think, in 2019. And the timing of our work involved the engagement of the CFA at the initial stage as a draft. And at that stage, they did raise some concerns about our aspirations, which then triggered us to do this bushfire planning study. And I might hand over to Michael, perhaps, just to kind of walk through what has exactly changed and how has that impacted our ability to accommodate growth.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Kelly. It's rather unusual that we do prepare such a technical report towards the end of the life of a strategic document. In an ideal space, it would have been prepared before we started on the LDS journey, but it wasn't. The CFA is on record telling Council at pre-draft and draft stage that it did not consider the work that was attached to the draft document, the bushfire technical work, to be sufficient. It recommended a municipal-wide planning study. The planning study, of course, would consider landscape risk, and that has ultimately led to a series of different recommendations where the CFA has not supported quite a number of urban growth areas, particularly in Myrtleford and Toowoomba South. And ultimately that document will inform really the next 20 years worth of strategic planning work from Council, but this is the first document that the bushfire planning study is in effect influencing. Now, why have we done this? We've done this simply because the pre-draft and draft exercise of preparing the land development strategy is to make sure that that document is robust and all planning issues have been not only identified but mitigated and addressed. And that is in order to get the document fit for purpose for a planning scheme amendment. And a planning scheme amendment must be run in accordance with the Planning and Environment Act. It is a statutory process in Victoria. And ultimately, we don't want these type of issues coming through submissions as part of the planning scheme amendment. So Council has commissioned the bushfire planning study towards the end of the latter half of the life of the LDS. It is unusual. If you look around the state of Victoria, other councils have also done exactly what we have done. You're looking at Indigo. Shire Council has just commissioned its. We're about 6 months behind Surf Coast Council themselves. So all councils in regional and rural Victoria are really struggling with integrating the CFA's new powers under clause 1302-1S of the Alpine Planning Scheme. But Council has now been completed and the document, the CFA certainly supports the final document.
Thanks, Mr. McDonough. One other point to reflect on, but just to round that up there, if people have got concerns about how this is coming together and trying to avoid having unclear guidelines for development and build and not getting to that point where the CFA then makes a ruling that makes things really problematic for you, your only other alternative is really to start talking to the state government because it has set the priorities that we are now following. Last one from me, just in section 3 there, there's some really interesting commentary around the broader context of how this has come together. I was fortunate enough to first move here about a decade ago and I seem to fit in about that median age that it's highlighted in the paper, whereas the state average is 37, our median age is 49, but it is really pulling out some big trends that have shown up here, even in the last decade in terms of the types of new residents, the type of employment that is showing up here, and I think it captures that well in the sense that they're a bit younger than me, but some of the people I get to exercise with during the week have moved here not because they want to mow lawns or have a big veggie garden. They're here for the outdoors and for the activity, and they like the idea of some infill because it will give them some more affordable housing and actually let them do their recreation on the weekend that they moved here for. So I think it's captured that sentiment well.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Prime.
Yes, thank you for that. Just touching on that, yeah, I think it's important to remember that not everyone wants to live on the same quarter-acre block and have a house with a big yard to mow, and I think we forget that sometimes, that everyone wants something different. I'm going to try not to cross over too much with what Councillor Kelly said, because there's quite a bit here. First up, thank you to the team, enormous job. I don't think anyone could actually comprehend how much time has gone into this. A few questions that might pop up that have popped up along the way. It's important to recognise there is a rural land development strategy coming. I probably worded that wrong, but you get the gist. So certain towns like Dedarang, Majigonga, Wandi won't pop up on this. So if you're looking for them, that's coming. And it's more that it's looking forward and looking at how growth will be accommodated. Obviously, it's a bit of guesswork and trying to do the best we can with the numbers we've got in front of us. There was a huge amount of community consultation went into this, and a big shout out to the team for doing that, because it does make it a really big process, taking on lots of people's submissions and ideas. And you're going to get to the end of a document like this and we're like, we can't please everyone. And obviously, just touching on the bushfire stuff before, there are certain constraints we have to work around. We've already discussed northeast water tonight and how that will actually add into the constraints as well. So it's being mindful of that, but I think shout out to the community that we have taken a lot on board, but obviously just if you don't agree with this, it doesn't actually mean we've done a bad job of it. It just might be that there's certain constraints and there's certain directions that we have to head with documents like this. Anyone else wants to chip in?
Thanks very much, Councillor Prime. I've got a question regarding the high-level findings, just relating to the projected growth, population growth. It's recorded in here there's a growth of around 2,700 people in the 20 years, an increase of up to 2041. But then in the next sentence it says that it is expected that there will be a need for an additional 2,160 homes to cater for 2,700 people. Now, if we take the average household occupancy at 2.3, I only come up with about 1,200 homes required. So I'm not sure on why or how that was actually calculated.
So the way it's calculated is based on the existing, I guess, configuration of homes, and our housing stock is very heavily weighted to sort of the 3-bedroom family home, and that sort of drives the initial numbers. But then looking at some of the requirements to be able to accommodate the growth and providing a variation or variety in the housing stock, single bedroom dwellings, smaller dwellings, have been factored in, and so that's where that sort of accommodation ratio of number of people to houses has been adjusted to accommodate that variation in the housing stock.
Right, so a lot of single occupancy houses is what we're talking about, retirement type situations.
Smaller houses, ready to cater, as Councillor Prime sort of and Councillor Kelly mentioned, single families, single person families or smaller families, downsizing, and the affordability of those in the market also provides the more access to home ownership.
Right. So that answer probably answers the questions we had on notice earlier on from Mr. David Alfonso as well. Any other commentary on, or councillors like to make comment on this particular?
Katarina.
Oh, thank you. Got a hand up. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.
Can we have some more volume, please? I'm just going to get some volume for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've never been told I'm quiet before, that's nice. Am I good to go?
Just 1 minute.
That's okay.
Try that.
I can start singing, that helps. Is that alright?
Go for it. Everybody be quiet. We'll listen to Councillor Hughes.
Okay, no worries. I'll try and speak a bit louder so that you can hear me. But this has been an absolute enormous amount of work that staff have put into this. We have been heavily involved, and I have no doubt, dragged this out a lot longer than it probably was intended, with the amount of information that we have asked for and questions that we have had along the way. So a big shout out to, I think, everybody involved that has put their 2 bobs worth in and really kind of put a representation of the community and what it is that we're looking for when it comes to the future growth of the Alpine Shire. As we've noted, you know, you're never going to please everybody, but I think it's really important to understand that you have to start somewhere when you're putting a plan in place. Otherwise, things can get highly out of control. So being able to put a land development strategy like this and identify the areas where there is potential growth is really important. But I think it's also really important to understand that this is where the more strategic and pinpointed research goes into these towns where this has been identified. There could be constraints in this process that then turns around and shows us that the development that we have thought might not be appropriate based on certain considerations. But you have to be able to start from an idea to then grow that idea, and that is going to form and change as we continue through this process. The consultation to date has been above and beyond, in my personal view. I think that that's also a very warranted thing, because this is a very big strategic driving document that's going to be affecting our Alpine Shire as a whole. So I would really like to see this level of input and consideration with our community to continue to have comment and have that respected view of being told where we're at along the process. So we have to start somewhere, and being able to pinpoint where to start is the first thing, and this is what it's allowing us to do.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Nicholas.
Yeah, I'm trying not to repeat what everybody else has said, but what everyone else said, plus, I think what this has done from my perspective is it identifies what has potential for growth, or areas that have potential for growth, that then won't be struck off by CFA or flooding or the other things that we know of. And just to talk a little bit about Mr. Gray's question before, this land development strategy actually identifies that we need to do some structure planning and some character assessment as part of it, so that as the settlements do fill in and there is growth in population, we have appropriate areas to put a doctor's surgery or whatever it might be, and so that we don't change the character of the townships to beyond recognition, so that it's a gradual change rather than something that we all fear, like multi-stories or whatever it might be. So that works in process, and we can't stop the building or development because we haven't got the work done. So we have to keep going and try and get that work done as quickly as we can and as responsibly as possible. And just one more thing about the engagement. There was even a pop-up at the Bright Market less than 2 weeks ago. So we have been absolutely trying really hard to get all the feedback we can.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I'm not going to reiterate that. I just want to point out recommendation 6, which we've talked about earlier today in regards to North East Water, and the Victorian Government requesting that all necessary resources be made available immediately to address the potable water, and particularly in Mount Beauty, Toowoomba South. So I think, you know, we talk about this particular strategy, and in the Kiwa Valley at the moment it's a bit hamstrung with the development based on that. So it's good to see that recommendation in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Great conversation.
Oh, Councillor Janice, you were a bit slow. Go on.
Look, I'm not going to reiterate what everybody else has said, and I agree with that, but I think the point is to keep an eye out into the future for our rural land development strategies as well. There was a very interesting article on Landline a couple of weeks ago, if anyone saw it, about agricultural land being eaten up by more housing development and the consequences of all of that too. So we need to keep our agriculture and land for other horticultural purposes as well. We just can't keep spreading out and losing all of that. If we have to do some infill, so be it. But we need to have defined boundaries for our towns, etc. That's it.
Thanks, Councillor Janis. And I'll just reiterate, I will reiterate what Mr. Rees said earlier, and that is that the public do get another bite at this one, and that is when you come to the planning scheme amendment. Is that correct? Right, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Just the last thing to add, just to acknowledge there were lots of professional, local-based folk in the technical reference group that also gave up their professional time to contribute to this through the process as well. Engineers, planners, real estate, quite a diverse group there, so thank you for their time as well.
Well said. Okay, to the vote. Those in favour of recommendations? Thank you, that is unanimous. Moving on to item 8.2.4, and I believe Councillor Kelly has a conflict, and will leave the room at 6:37. This is the Alpine Shire Sport and Active Recreation Master Plans. Thank you again, Director of Assets, Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Mayor. So just by way of context and introduction, this report relates to the adoption of the Alpine Shire Sport and Active Recreation plans for the major parks around Bright, Mount Beauty and Milford. Again, a draft was presented some months ago. That draft was taken back to the public for further consultation, and a range of valuable additional input was provided. On that draft, all of that, the detail of how that feedback has been incorporated into the plan is outlined in the issues section. In total, there were 26 submissions, and as you'll note, the vast majority of them have been able to be accommodated. There are a couple that, at this point in time, will be deferred to future processes and planning assessments. But it's really great to see the level of feedback and engagement that's occurred. So in order to discuss this, I'd like to recommend that Council considers the recommendation to adopt these master plans, which will then enable officers to ongoing activities to seek external funding in accordance with the priorities identified to actually progress with the development of final designs and construction.
Thanks, Mr. Rees. Mover and seconder. Councillor Janis, Councillor Keeble, Councillor Janis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, congratulations to the team who've put this together. I think there's a member of the team present down the back there tonight. Lots of community consultation has gone also into this strategy. It has we've had pop-ups and people making all relevant comments to staff and councillors who were present at a lot of those pop-ups there. But I noted in point 2, we seek external funding to, I suppose, fund these priorities. You're not going to get any funding if you don't have if you don't have some sort of plan in place, a strategic plan going forward. At least that gives the funding body confidence that we are on the right track and we know what we're doing. Some of these things are a little bit futuristic, I know that, but that will depend on funding availability, and the next 1 or 2 years might be a bit difficult for state and federal government with budgets, as we know, and we've got to be realistic about that. So, but at least we have a plan going forward, and hopefully those clubs and other areas will be satisfied with it, that they've been included and listened to.
Thanks, Councillor Janis. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. Thanks, Councillor Janis. I've been on for a little while, and there's been a few master plans for the Shire Sport and Active Recreation master plans. They're super important in regards to the community cohesion. They're well utilised in our areas. My question is, as Councillor Janice pointed out, that they're required for getting funding. How long do we see this master plan, which is 2004, being current for, before another one is done?
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. Probably just to confirm, the feedback that the team has had from the funding bodies is very much that their focus has changed. So one of their key criteria is you're not eligible for funding or even submitting an application if you don't have an endorsed master plan that demonstrates, I guess, co-creation of priorities with the community. We know that times change and priorities shift. I think in this particular case, the work that the team have done, the amount of input and engagement and co-contribution from the community has been extensive. And the way the prioritisation has been, I guess, sort of identified, is at a much greater level of confidence and detail and rigour than what I've seen previously. So although we're probably facing some budgetary constraints in the coming years, I think the work that's been done here provides a fantastic foundation. Unfortunately, no doubt there will be some tweaking going into the future. It also depends on the funding sources or the funds that government then release. So just because something is sitting further down the priority list doesn't mean that if an opportunity arises, we don't jump at it. I think that we need to be flexible and dynamic to reach out where the opportunities present.
Thanks for that. That makes sense in regards to the new funding arrangements and what is being required for a new master plan. If people in the gallery and out listening, would know there's been some others, and so we can see that to have a new one, there's been some new guidelines for a new one. We had a good chat, the CEO and I, on Friday with Ross Beveridge from the Mount Beauty Cricket Club about the sport piece in here in the Upper Kima Valley. And there will be community members that are probably waiting for things to happen over the time, including access to toilets on the Les Perth Oval when there's athletics and soccer and kids cricket and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully this particular master plan will have some of those actions that will get some funding for them when we apply. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Prime.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, once you produce a document like this, it's people waiting for things to pop up, and unfortunately they cost a lot of money generally. So it's a time thing as well. Huge amount of work, just a few numbers make interesting. 393 survey submissions for this, 62 user groups, and a huge amount of user groups within each place. So for example, 16 user groups in Pioneer Park and 18 user groups in Mount Beauty, and it's hard to get everyone agreeing and everyone on the same page. So I feel like a lot of effort goes in to make everyone as happy as possible, and obviously not everything will make the cut and not everything is totally necessary. More aspirations for some things, so I understand cuts have to be made as well. But as we've already spoken about, we need these things to get money and make things happen. So we'll see how we go from here.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas. Thank you.
Yep. Same as everybody else again. Lots of consultation, etc. The only thing that hasn't got in the list, and is because it's subject to an aquatic study, is the update of the swimming pools across the Shire, including a new pool in Bright.
I think that's next.
It is next.
Yeah.
It's coming. But a big plan, lots of people involved, and be interesting to see how it rolls out and when its next review is.
Councillor Hughes, did you have anything to add?
Nothing that hasn't already been said, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Janice.
Nothing further.
Nothing further, then I'll put these two recommendations to the vote. Those in favour, please. Thank you, that's carried. We'll recall Councillor Kelly, please, at 6:45. 8.2.5, Mystic Park Management Contract. Thank you, Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Mayor. So, by way of context, this report relates to an update regarding the recent award of contract for the management of Mystic Park and the operation of it to Innovation Parks, and also the dissolution of Alpine Community Plantations as a result of this development. So probably it's a bit of a sad celebration, if you like, in terms of what's occurred. Almost the Mystic Park, under the auspice of Alpine Community Plantations, has become a victim of its own success. It started out in 2013 as a great community initiative where a non-for-profit was created and really with great collaboration between HVP as the land manager and the three community groups being the Alpine Cycling Club, the Brighton District Chamber of Commerce and North East Victorian Hang Gliding Club, with the council obviously involved as well. And that collaboration has resulted in, I guess, the industry acknowledged creation of a really world-class facility for mountain biking. And as a result of this success, which really kicked off following the introduction of the Hero Trail and Shred Kelly a few years ago, put Mystic on the map as a sort of a national location. It's provided significant stimulus to the economy, figures around 60,000 specialist visitors, 27 million a year in revenue and income. And as a result of this, this model for managing Mystic has needed to change. And so following all of the tendering and so on, this report really wants to acknowledge the work of all the volunteers tirelessly over those years to really get this park to this point. The onboarding of Innovation Parks has been as seamless as can be imagined. Services have been up and running. They've met all of their onboarding contract obligations. And as a result of this, just by way of the recommendations, Council's awareness, Alpine Community Plantations will be considering dissolution later in September, which is the ultimate outcome and a great, I guess, community success. So I hand it over to Council for consideration and discussion.
So moved.
Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Prime. Councillor Nicholas.
Yep, absolutely. ACP did a terrific job. I was around when it was first being formed as a mountain bike, a member of the Alpine Cycling Club, mountain bike coordinator or something, and they have done a terrific job as a volunteer organisation. I look forward to seeing the full potential of the park within its existing constraints as Elevation Parks does what it says it's going to do. I have a question though about the residents of Mystic Lane and whether there's been any feedback since the movement of the shuttling from that side, because there has been really good feedback from residents of Bondillagong and other people who use Morses Creek Road and how much safer it feels driving along the road without all those cyclists parking and loading their bikes off onto the road and terrifying us. So yes, has there been any feedback from Mystic Lane residents yet?
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. I'm not aware of any feedback at this point in time. However, when ACP were developing the new access route into Mystic Park, the Mystic Lane residents were heavily involved in that engagement and they were fully supportive of this change. So I guess no news is good news, I'm hoping, and that they're benefiting from the fact that the new access road is actually bitumenized. So from a dust perspective, hopefully they're benefiting from that, and also the reduced traffic on Mystic Lane. So I hope I'm making the right assumption.
Yeah, I hear you. No news, good news. The other good feedback that I've received is the bike wash at the hub. So terrific. Well done.
Councillor Prime.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a lot to add. I think it's worth mentioning again the volunteer hours that would have gone into this, particularly in the last 12 months, I think probably would have been quite substantial. And if it wasn't for that, ACP wouldn't have made it what it was. So yeah, excellent outcome for everyone so far.
Councillor Janis.
Just a question for Mr. Rees. This recalled some months ago, it's actually at this venue where we awarded the contract to the new contractors, and there were some people in the gallery concerned in relation to future employment, whether they were going to lose their job or be taken on by new contractors. Can you, are you in a position to inform us whether the majority of those displaced people are now working with the new operator?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I can confirm that Elevation Parks did offer all incumbent employees that were involved in providing services in Mystic Park the opportunity to apply for work with them. I know that a number of them have. I cannot attest to how many exactly, but I do know that despite the uncertainty at the time, the work that was done in collaboration between Council, ACP, Blue Dirt and Elevation Parks did end up resulting in everyone being provided an opportunity, which was the ultimate outcome. So those that wish to, I presume, have taken that up.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Councillor Nicholas?
No.
Okay, to the vote, those three recommendations. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. 8.2.6, Myrtleford Mountain View Children's Centre funding application. Just before this is a time-sensitive one. Thank you. Mr. Rees.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So, just by way of context, the reason for bringing this forward at this point in time is that there is an existing funding opportunity, and although in the recommendations there's an acknowledgement of some uncertainty about any future contributions and the value of those, the reason for bringing it forward is to maintain the momentum in seeking potential funding to be able to progress this important project. So the Myrtleford Mountain View Children's Centre has undergone a detailed design exercise which was fully funded by the Victorian Schools Building Authority. The result of all of that work has come to, I guess, a conclusion that the building needs to be upgraded, and this design gives us the impetus and, I guess, the justification to be eligible for that funding application. The challenge that we have is that the amount of money that is available in the funding application is linked to the number of additional kindergarten spaces, and so therefore based on that calculation the Building Blocks Fund would only grant a maximum of $4.2 million, and following as part of the detailed design exercise and a quantity survey of the anticipated costs, the actual upgrade due to the whole building needing to be upgraded is in excess of $8 million. And so in the event that Council considered supporting the application, there would be some further work done if we were successful to determine the actual final volume and the funding model to enable Council to consider making that co-contribution or not. So I put that forward for Council to consider and discuss, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. Could I have a mover, please? Seconder?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you, Councillor Janis, Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Janis?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's a lot of money. Probably the biggest capital works project, single capital works project that we've had on our books in my 12 years anyway here. But it's a very important piece of work for the Shire and the growth of our Shire. We can't just look at today, we have to look into the future. We have the state, I suppose, has got a shortage of childcare spaces or kindergarten spaces. Myrtleford has I'm going to say a lower socio-economic, that's wrong. But it also has a need for affordable kindergarten placing. Just doesn't supply Myrtleford, but also other smaller communities in our area, even though they might be in Wangaratta Shire, like Rowley or similar places. And then our outlying farming districts as well, with a lot of young people there needing that service. If we don't go ahead with, if this doesn't get passed tonight, then we may have lost an opportunity to apply for funding going forward. Would that be right?
Thank you for the clarification, Councillor Janner. So the way the fund is structured is that applications will be considered on a first come first served basis, and at this point in time the fund is undersubscribed, and so officers are recommending that in order to put ourselves in the best position for consideration for being eligible to receive the funding, that we move earlier and in that way get clarity on whether we're successful or not, and then I guess eliminate or avoid the risk of oversubscription as time passes and our position being subverted in the hierarchy of applications. If we come too late, it might already be oversubscribed.
Okay, so I understand we've done the preliminary work, we've done all the investigations. It's, I suppose you could say, almost a shovel-ready project, which is what government likes to see. And it all, should we be successful, it also lessens the on-costs or the creep going forward. So it's good that we're on the... But with the extra 4.23 million, substantial amount, I'm assuming then that the new council, it is for funding, not just from the one source, but perhaps multiple sources to make that shortfall, which will ease the burden on the ratepayer. Yep. Okay, good.
Just to confirm, yes, yes, Councillor Jones, that is the strategy.
Yep, good, thank you.
Councillor Nicholas.
So my question is around, I guess you'd call it the exit strategy. So if we apply for the money and then go, we've got to find another 4 million, and that's prohibitive, what do we do then?
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. You know, like all things, you know, I think it's important to have the courage to acknowledge the importance of this service, as has been stated by councillors. Being able to meet the co-contribution, you know, is a risk. There are a range of options that are available to explore, so we'll certainly exhaust all of those, whether it's from council funds, co-contributions from the federal government, potentially partnerships with operators. So there are a range of those options that need to be exhausted. It would be a shame if we weren't able to meet the co-contribution, but the inevitable result will be that we may not be able to proceed, and we'd have to continue with the existing building as it is. I think the important thing to note is that the funding application is not binding, so until such time as the agreement is signed, there is no obligation on council to co-contribute.
Thank you, and yes, I absolutely agree. It's a critical and fundamental part of our economic way forward, that parents can both work, otherwise they can't afford a house, and on it goes. So I get it. It's just, thanks for answering the question.
Councillors? Yes, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, look, I personally use this service myself, even though being a resident of Paul Punker, the spaces were not available to me in my direct immediate area. So for me, I actually sought out work in Myrtleford and put my children in the service when they were younger. And I know that the growth has only become larger since then in the Alpine Shire as a whole. So as Councillor Janice has said, it's, you know, people on the other side of Myrtleford as well, but it is also a flow-on effect from Bright And I think with the continued growth that we have anticipated, especially noting in the land development strategy where our potential growth is going to be, I think it's really important that we're putting our hand up for these types of services to say this is what we're supporting moving forward, knowing that not only are we trying to already service what's here, but we do have that future potential growth of even more families coming to our area. So I think from my perspective, not only is this an integral, like it's utilised already and overflowing, being able to provide a service and a building that's going to accommodate for that growth is really important.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Mr Rees, the 4.23 Councillor co-contribution, do you think that's an upper limit? Because there's really been no design work done as to, there has been design work done for the building, but would it be possible to build the building cheaper? I suppose that's the simple question.
So I think the important thing to understand, just to clarify, is that the detailed design has been complete. That has then been submitted to a quantity surveyor to provide as accurate as possible assessment of the likely construction costs, and then a further 15% contingency has been added to that for potential escalations and latent conditions. Could it be constructed for less? I guess the answer is yes, we would explore those options, modular designs and things like that in the event that we were successful. But this is a starting point and really provides us with a fit-for-purpose facility based on demand and kind of operating efficiencies.
Thank you. Any other councillors? No? Okay. Back to Councillor Janus. Any final words?
Yeah, thanks. I think I probably need to acknowledge the Victorian Schools Building Authority for the SBA for the grant of $150,000 to do this preparatory work, and also the Victoria Government for the Best Start, Best Life reforms rollout for early childhood education, and I think governments are seeing the need for to have those programs and support as best we can. So hopefully they might be a little bit more generous to us than the amount we're asking for. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Recommendations as read. There are 3 of them. Those in favour, please. Carried. 8.2.7, the variation to contract for public bins and amenities cleaning services, what everybody's been waiting for. Okay, thanks Mr Rees.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess in a nutshell, based on the earlier discussions, this report is recommending the approval of a variation to the SSX contract for the services of public bins and amenities cleaning services across the entire Shire. I guess to cut to the chase, the reason for this is due to an increase in the necessary service because of an increase in the number of required bins. So we've got additional bins that have been added and also cleaning services to cater for the current demand and also to then accommodate some new public amenities and bin installations which are part of the Capital Works program, which are in work in progress but will be coming to fruition in the course of the next period. So in order to provide that enhanced service, there's a recommendation this evening for Council to consider a variation to the contract which would increase the total value by $59,591.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Prime. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I do reflect on a period where I visit other parts of regional Victoria and remark their facilities were not kept to the standard ours were, and I also believe we did go through a dip. I do think we did go through a dip in the services of the standard of our facilities. My experience is, and I travel to many parts of our Shire on most days as part of my role, my day job, and our facilities are back on the improve again. And I think we all want clean facilities. Clean facilities really require labour. AI is coming, but the robots aren't here yet. So it requires labour, and labour costs money, and you know, particularly that first item is around more frequent cleaning and attendance. The one thing I did want to remark upon though is that, you know, it's actually up to everyone and their behaviour on how our facilities are treated. Litter is an offence. It's been an offence in Victoria since the Litter Act of 1986 or something of that nature, and you know, I continue to get disappointed that the very thing that people come and live and, you know, do to appreciate our environment is also the one thing that can be mistreated in visits and in expediting that trip up to the snow or whatever it is. You know, I can't believe what's on the side of the road sometimes. So I would like to see our sort of what have we got here, $175,000 variation. I think the next one we should channel the money towards campaigns around anti-litter. You know, thanks for visiting, take your butts with you, all those kinds of things that we have had in the past. I don't think there's enough campaigning for the types of visitors we're getting and the importance of keeping the environment clean.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Prime.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will add to that. I had personal responsibility written on my list. As much as we need public bins and clean amenities, and absolutely we need this service, I do think there is a certain amount of personal responsibility that needs to take place. I've done a lot of travelling with camping and camper vans, and if ever there is not a bin to put my rubbish in, I take it with me, but not everyone does that. So absolutely, I totally concur with everything you said, Councillor Kelly. I'd like to add to this, I know how busy the service is getting. Obviously there's a few additions there. Mount Beauty Pebble Beach has been added, the Myrtleford Splash Park, which will come to fruition soon. I do know there is some people out in Dettering who would like to see a service added there at some point, so hopefully that stays on the radar for future. I do understand there's only a certain amount of services to go around as well. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Councillor Prime. Council did have some feedback at one point in time earlier this year regarding some bins that were overflowing and what have you. And it came down to a situation of whose bins they actually were. Are we identifying Alpine Shire bins so that if somebody has got a complaint about the service, they know who to complain to?
Thank you, Mayor. So all of council's bins have a QR code on the side. So it's very easy for community members to scan that if they're full and overflowing. It goes straight to the service provider. We're able to they can then prioritise an hour cycle service. I guess if you've seen bins that are overflowing and may not have a QR code on them, contact us anyway so that we can find out and work with whoever's bins they are to see what they can do to improve their service and frequency.
Thank you. Other councillors? Councillor Janis?
Yeah, just quickly, in relation to Councillor Kelly's thing about campaigning, we did used to have campaigns and they were funded by the North East Waste Management group, which I sat on the board for a couple of years. Now that's been disbanded by the state government's gone to a central point down in Melbourne, and therefore those funds are sort of no longer available to us per se, and that campaigning fund's going to have to come out of residents' pockets.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As much as we don't want to see, an increase in unbudgeted funds being used, bins are what we do, and I have to admit it's probably one of the biggest topics of conversation in my term on council so far has been the evolution of what our waste services look like. And look, I think that is showing that our residents have pride in where it is that we live. I also, as Mr. Rees has said, we have the QR codes on the side of our bins, and I think utilising the processes, or if the processes don't work, then we need to know about that as well. So if a QR code is not a handy tool or it's not in a place where people can see it, I think the continued consultation and continued response to these types of things is really crucial, and we thank the community for that as well. We live here too, we live in the community, and in order for everybody involved to have the clean, tidy towns that we want to see, just work together and make sure that these things are noted, because sometimes it is just as simple as a phone call or an email in, or using the QR codes in order for those things to be fixed. But with the continued growth and continued services that are being added to our area for people to have access to, I think it's really important that these types of things be considered and changed where necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Anybody else? I'll pass back to Councillor, Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I just wanted to add, thanks to all the councillors there for their thoughts, I wanted to add that in the last so many years, I think, and there was a dip at some stage, and there was a lot of community, messages coming from especially Upper Kiva Valley, because the distance for the cleaners to come and do the toilets. But I think in my time on council, I think some of the, probably the most thanks from people from outside of Shire has actually been from visitors who have then written into council and complimented the Shire on the cleanliness of the Shire, around the towns and in the toilets and all that sort of stuff. So I think on a whole everything's pretty good. There's times that we know there hasn't been, but I think there's a lot of people that say that generally it's a pretty clean place. So that's what I wanted to say.
Could I just add something? In just 3 weeks of petitions being placed around several spots in Bright, I've had over 10% the population of Bright, many even from Queensland, Melbourne, all that. They don't agree with the rubbish is getting better on the rise. I'll hand these in at the office when I get back.
Actually, if you like, you could, if it's a petition, there is a point in the meeting at item 12. Item 13, which is a reception and reading of petitions, which if you did hand it in tonight, we would take it, and then you would get a reply, or there'd be we go through into normal business we go into normal business in the next council meeting.
Okay.
So if you would like to do that, if you are from Brighton and if you wish to leave, I think you could actually leave your petition here tonight if you wish, and then we could receive it at item 13.
I have trust issues, so I got copies on the iPad.
Oh no, you don't. No, that's fine.
Oh no,
yeah, we don't have a scanner here, by the way. Alright. So look, if you'd like to.
And I've noticed while people are there filling out their things, I'm explaining to them about the courses, and they're all, a lot of them are saying, like since the contractors were replaced, they've noticed that too.
Certainly, I think that's part of your petition.
Generally,
yeah. I haven't seen the wording of your petition yet, but we will read it later on, okay?
They're generally, they seem to be more aware than I was actually expecting.
You can take us. John,
stay there.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
I was just going to say something.
You do wish to say something? Okay, thank you.
So I just thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate that. I just wanted to add, though, to the whole conversation about the beauty of the Alpine Shire. One of the reasons that some of the roads are nice, like Tonga Gap and up the Hawthorne Road, is because community members go up and pick it all up. So there's lots of pride of place, and thank you very much to the people who get out there and make a difference.
Thanks very much. Right, we're back to Councillor Kelly for any final words.
I think the other thing we should have an eye to here is that overfilling bins is actually in some cases, I believe it's a spillover from the short stay accommodation and the inadequacy of waste and recycling facilities, probably more garbage facilities than recycling, which really goes to how we best manage short stay accommodation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Recommendations are there. Let's put them to the vote. Those in favour, please. Thank you. That's carried unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
realise that I should step out for the next item.
Certainly. Item 8.2.8, Councillor Nicholas has declared a general conflict of
Oh, my
interest.
daughter works for Belgravia.
Right, okay. Councillor Nicholas leaving the room at 7:16. Thank you. Again, Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Mayor. This report relates to requesting approval for a variation to another existing contract, which is the provision of swimming pool and management and operation of the Bright Sports Centre services. This is an unbudgeted request, and the main reason for that is that in negotiations with Belgravia, who currently have a 3-year contract with an option to renew for 3 further 1-year terms, was slightly out of sequence with our normal budgeting process. And so now that those discussions and negotiations have concluded, due to legitimate increases in operating costs, bearing in mind that for the first 3 years there have been no increases, but due to labour cost increases in the award, and council officers have verified those realities, in order to continue to have Belgravia provide these services, we're recommending that for 1 further year, Council approves an unbudgeted spend of $103,666 to enable Belgravia to provide the services at the standard that's required, and that's to incorporate legitimate increases in operating costs that they've experienced and shared with us.
Yeah, so
Councillor Janus. Councillor Prime. Councillor Janus.
yeah, thanks for the officers for doing all the background work to ensure that what's before us is fit and proper. We have to have our swimming pools and other recreational areas properly maintained, otherwise we're not going to have lifeguards. They're not going to be able to pay them. They're not going to work, and therefore we have a safety issue. So that's part of the ongoing escalating costs of the area in which we live, and don't like just overspending on money, but this is something that I think we need to do.
Thank you. Councillor Prime.
Yeah, thank you. Can't argue with anything Councillor Janus said. We need our pools. Basically, they're a great health asset to the Shire. I don't think councils make any money off them, but I'm fully supportive of them being there, and they're well utilised around here as well. So yeah, as much as we don't like an unbudgeted spend, I think this has to be done.
Councillors? No. No. Yes, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rees, if I could ask a question, please. With Belgravia jumping on board with the services of our pool and the gym facility in Bright, have we seen an increase in use of those facilities and the feedback that we provided as a service at all?
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. So in terms of exact numbers of increased use, I'm not in a position to provide that straight away. I can certainly come back to you with that. What we do, though, have is consistent customer feedback, which is provided by customers at the desk, often at the pools, to express their appreciation of the quality of service, the cleanliness, the availability, and the way the pools are presented and maintained. So that's really probably our key guide. We do know that initially there were some onboarding challenges with staffing and training. Belgravia have responded to those very proactively over the time that they've had the contract and been providing the service. And I think it's fair to say that the feedback we've had from the previous summer that's just passed was extremely positive from all 3 of our facilities, including Mount Beauty, which I think demonstrates their responsiveness to provide a good quality service.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Councillor Janice?
No.
No? All right. It's just reflective, I suppose. This is a service cost that's going up to council, unbudgeted. We've just had a rubbish removal, which is another service cost. So it looks like service costs are going up. And at the end of the day, I think what's going to suffer is going to be our capital works programs. Well, you can't just keep upping the money when we've got a limited income. So thank you for that. Put those to the vote. Those in favour, please. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Let's call Councillor Nicholas back in at 7:21. We do not have an 8.2.9. Numbering? 8.2.10. Dinner plane, entrance, civil works and landscaping.
Thank you, Mayor. By way of introduction and context, this report seeks to recommend Council considers the award of a contract for dinner plane entrance civil works and landscaping. This project has been coming along for a number of years. It started off in 2020 when Council did some initial scoping and costing. We then applied for some funding, which we were successful in securing in 2021. That then resulted in sort of design work and extensive community engagement to ensure that the designs incorporated community aspirations. And that relationship with the dinner plane community has matured over the time. And it's really resulted in a very healthy level of engagement. The team meet with the community representatives regularly. So detailed designs are now complete, costings have been completed, a tender process has been run, and as a result of that tender process, as we've experienced on other capital works projects, there have been some cost escalations. So this report is recommending the award of a contract for these works to the value of $2.46 million, which would include an unbudgeted expenditure of $561,000 to be funded through the dinner plane reserve in order to deliver the entire scope of the project. And the reason why this is important is that due to the external funding and the initial aspirations that were agreed in the funding agreement, if we do not deliver the project in full, there is significant risk that we would lose this funding and the project would not be able to be delivered. Fortunately, we do have available funding in the dinner plane reserve, so there is existing capacity to fund the entire delivery of the project. And so the recommendation from officers is to consider that as a mechanism to enable this project to be realised and mitigate the risk of potentially losing the funding.
Thank you. Got the mover?
I'll move it.
Did I have Councillor Nicholas? Councillor Keeble, did you?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas?
So I have a question to begin with, Mr. Rees. Is the Dinner Plane Community Association and other community members fully behind this development?
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Like all of these discussions, there are a great level of aspirations and you know, the reality of what can be achieved. I think it's fair to say that we've had some very robust discussions. We were needing to consider potentially you know, de-scoping to be able to, I guess, deliver within the funding envelope that we do have access to. That resulted in significant engagement with the community. The team have met extensively. Last week there was further discussions, and my understanding is that all bar one stakeholder is fully supportive of progressing with the delivery of the project in its full scope.
Thank you. And my follow-on question is, if the Dinner Plane Community Association wanted to see other projects carried out, would there still be money in the Dinner Plane Reserve for that in the future?
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Yes, there are those opportunities, and we are in discussions with the Community Association on their aspirations. So we're working, I guess, on both fronts, getting this project prioritised and then looking at what the next stages would involve.
Thank you for that, and I wanted to commend the project because I think the plane is a very important part of the alpine environment, and I look forward to seeing the works completed and landscaped.
Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. No, I concur with Councillor Nicholas there with the questions I was looking at, so I commend the project too. Thank you.
Thank you. The councillors. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Only just to single out, Dinner Plain, it is not part of the Alpine Resort. It's a part of the Alpine Shire Council, and I'm really pleased to see the items listed there in the village centre upgrades. I've been up there a couple of times this winter and thinking about this project, and the sort of husky races, which is a lot of fun. But when you're driving your vehicle through the Alpine Village or the resort, there are a lot of employees for the resort conducting traffic, directing to car parking, and facilitating, I guess, safe movement of mobile plant and pedestrians. When you get to Dinner Plain, well, it's just another little township like anything else in the Alpine Shire, and there is not that kind of level of personnel employed to do that. So I think having more adequate, clearer parking, more adequate, clearer pedestrian walkways between the pub to the village, back to the car park and things will all bring safety benefits, particularly in that winter period when it gets hectic. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commentary? No? Back to Councillor Nicholas. No? Thank you. Those in favour of the recommendations, please. Thank you, that's unanimous. Uh, 8.2.11, Toowoomba Memorial Hall refurbishment. Mr. West.
Thank you, Mayor Forsyth. This report also relates to the recommendation to award a contract for the construction and refurbishment of the Toowoomba Memorial Hall this time. A little bit of introduction and context. Council was successful in securing $850,000 worth of funding from Emergency Recovery Victoria in 2021. We'd had some extensive engagement with the community groups to define the scope. It was quite an ambitious scope, which involved change of use of the building, adding showers and toilets, etc., and wastewater upgrades. We went to tender with that scope. When we received the feedback from the market, it was more than double the value of the funding that we had, and so we needed to then relook at what was possible with the funding that we've been successful to secure. And thanks to the engagement with the community groups, we've been able to land on a good scope, which includes refurbishing bathrooms, commercial kitchen upgrade, external storage and meeting areas, disabled parking, addressing some exterior stormwater issues, etc. And so that final scope was then tendered, the submissions have been evaluated, and the recommendation based on that process is for Council to award a contract to the value of $705,599 to JOS Facility Management for that lump sum for Council to consider and discuss.
So moved. Councillor Keeble.
Yeah.
And Councillor Prime. Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. It's been a while coming, this one, and I can't remember when it started soon, but I remember saying that these things do take time, and I know everyone would like to have seen it done earlier, but we're here and the money's there, we've landed with the project, and those refurbishments will add to the Tonga Hall. Thanks for everyone who's been involved with the process to date. So I'm looking forward to the work's happening.
Councillor Prime, this is your backyard.
Tis, yes, that's, no, let's get cracking, basically. I think also we've used JOS on a few things recently, and I think by all reports, great. So looking forward to seeing what this will look like.
Thank you. Simple question from me, Mr. Rees. You've got 145,000K left in that kitty.
That was my question.
Where is that to be?
Thank
Where is
you.
that going to be utilised?
Thank you, Mayor Forsyth. So, it's important to have the ability to deal with any latent conditions that might occur. So in order for us to be able to do that within the funding envelope, those funds are set aside in the event that those occur.
So no other capital works involved at the hall, like decks or
Yes,
something,
so
paving?
following that additional funding, the deck has been added. That the money that you refer to is really is an insurance policy in the event that we do have any unforeseen latent conditions.
Thank you very much. Now, other.
No, you took my question.
Any other councillors' questions?
I understand that when I visited the hall, there was a little bit of movement in the floor, but around the edges, and I was told it was a floating floor because of the dancing that once taken place there. I hope that there is no mouldy rot under those areas, because you're going to need that extra money if there is.
Thanks for that.
Positive dust on the floor, so.
Positive note. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Keeble.
No.
Thank you. Those in favour of this recommendation, please. Let's get the thing happening. Yes, it's unanimous. Excellent.
For Director Reeves.
I think, yes, I was just about to mention that you can probably have a glass of water now, right? 8.3, the Acting Director of Customer Community, Ms Natalie Cook, Sustainable Event Guidelines, 8.3.1.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sustainable Event Guidelines document is an operational document designed to support Alpine Shire operators to run events that are environmentally sustainable. The guidelines have been developed to supersede the existing Waste-Wise Guide, which was endorsed by Council in 2020. These guidelines encompass a broader range of sustainability initiatives while retaining relevant content from the Waste-Wise Guide. It would be intended that these guidelines would be implemented as part of the 2024-2025 event permit application and grants process. And as guidelines continue to evolve to meet and reflect changes in the sustainability sector, we would also recommend that should the guidelines be approved tonight, that in the future operational change of these guidelines could be made under delegation. However, should there be a change to the strategic direction of the guidelines, they would come back to council. So does it?
You go.
Oh,
Who's doing this?
We beefed it out every year, I'll take it.
Right, Councillor Prime and seconder. Councillor Keeble.
Councillor Keeble.
Nicholas is all right.
Thanks, Councillor Prime.
Great, happy to support. These are excellent. As someone who is on an event committee, we are always looking for resources to help us out with this. I think we're becoming more and more conscious of reducing our footprint, but still enjoying events at the same time, so fantastic.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Nothing really further to add other than this was a great initiative in 220, and it's great to see that it keeps evolving.
Right. Commentary. Councillor Nicholas.
Yep, I agree. Fantastic initiative to build the event guidelines into something that's bigger and better. And I also appreciate that the council officers who are behind it will be available to help event organisers work through, at least in the early days, until they work how to do it themselves. And that there's opportunity for things like photo, which currently are pretty hard to manage at an event, but as Councillor Kelly spoke about earlier, when you're at a place and you're going to take your waste with you, that's what I do with my photo. I take it home and put it in the right photo place. So hopefully there'll be green bins. But terrific way forward, and look forward to it rolling out.
Thanks, Councillor Nicholas. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. And just reflecting on I think it was a question from the gallery earlier tonight about the point that a lot of our waste gets trucked a long way because sadly it's the most cost-effective way to put that in a hole in the ground, many hundreds of kilometres from our shire. The focus on having an event that minimises waste I'd be encouraging folk to think beyond the day of the event and think about what the event is, because we really don't want to see single-use goods consumed at the event, but we also don't want to see single-use toys or whatever else is at the market sort of is, being landfill ready and still making that journey across to Echuca, shortly after sale. Thank you.
I'd like to just make one comment on that item 2, dot point 2 on this particular one, I think is very good, because I think that a lot of what we actually do with these things, if they're not substantial directional changes, strategic changes to policies, I think they should be done under delegation, because I just believe that that speeds the whole process up. So commend you on that, and I'm just wondering if you look at that, if there is a way in which you can then have a recommendation at some point in time from the officers, depending on governance rules, that becomes part of business as usual, just on policies, but just that's commentary. Back to you, Councillor Prime.
No. Sorry, Mary. Oh, Kat. Sorry, Kat.
Sorry, Kat.
Thanks, Mary.
I keep all the time.
You should have the big screen.
Yeah, no.
I've got you.
It's designed so that she can be life-size. Sorry.
You're supposed to go next.
I just wanted to make note here that these types of things are really good for, especially new events coming into the Alpine Shire that want to know the minimum requirements that they need to be able to get their event up and running. But also noting that it's important that our existing events take these type of things on board. We have events that range from being very small to really big user groups. So it's really important that these things continue to grow and evolve as they come through. And as Mr. Mayor said, having point number 2 is really important, to leave those operational pieces to the staff that are continually having those discussions with our event organisers as well.
Thank you. I'll look for you next time.
And there's no one here.
No. Councillor, okay, I won't go back to Councillor Prime yet. Councillor Janice.
Thanks,
As an avid bin monitor at festivals, it's the job I get. Spoken to staff during the briefing sessions and in the when these guidelines come through, and it's important to note that it's got to be user-friendly for the volunteers as well, because you're handling people you may or may not know who have a different mindset to things, where they put their rubbish, etc., etc. And so to have a standard throughout the Shire is the way to go. And I have suggested this, and I think it's been taken on board, that the Shire control at the bins, the signage that goes on the bin, so that it's relevant throughout the whole of the Shire, and don't rely on the volunteers to make up those signs. But it is good to know that the staff will be available to assist the volunteers, in this, particularly as Councillor Hughes says, that there are a lot of small events within the community that, they're not professional people, they just want to do something, raise a bit of money or interact with the community for whatever reason. So it's good that we've got this policy, but we'll look after our volunteers in this space too.
Councillor Prime.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
You're good now. Okay then, in that case, let's put these recommendations to vote. Those in favour? Thank you, that is unanimous. 8.3.2, instruments and
So
appointment.
moved.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Prime, any commentary?
Operational. Well, sort of. We get operational.
Thank you, Councillor Prime.
No, none from me.
Any detractors? No, in that case, put it to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. 8.3.3, Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes, and I note that they are unconfirmed. Ms Cook?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which was held on the 16th of August 2024. There is a brief description of the key items that were presented to and considered by the committee, and I note that the minutes are an attachment to this meeting, to these papers, and it is recommended that Council receives and notes the unconfirmed minutes of the meeting.
So moved.
Councillor Keeble, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Keeble,
No, nothing to add.
Councillor Kelly.
Just to thank my fellow councillors that have given up their, agreed to be on this committee and commit their time. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councillors? No? Yes, those in favour? Thank you. That is unanimous again. 8.3.4, the planning application at 117 Gavin Street, Bright. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to planning application P2023-148 for 117 Gavin Street, Bright. The proposal is to develop and use the land for a bathhouse and ancillary cafe. There are quite detailed planning assessment conditions written in the report before you. In conclusion, the application is considered not consistent with all relevant policies and decision guidelines of the Alpine Planning Scheme. Car parking has not been provided to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. The proposed use and development contained within this report is considered to make a valuable contribution to the tourism sector. However, it's not suited to the site. As for the reasons provided in the application materials, which included the presence of a tree protection zone and difference in levels, it is unable to provide on-site car parking and will place undue pressure on existing car parking that is already under stress.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Janis. Seconded, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Janis.
I'm not going to go into large discussion of that. Thank you for the report, Ms Cook. I do understand this matter is before VCAT at this point in time, and they will make their own decision on this matter as well. But I understand certainly that the reasons for refusing this application as per the report.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I would note that also, I think the words that we used were, it's a really good project, but just in the wrong location. That's all.
Other councillors wish to comment on the planning application? Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Really important site to the community of Bright. Councillor Hughes and I took the opportunity to visit the site with the proponent some time ago now. I think we sent a little note to our fellow councillors about what we learnt there. But you know, the report is very useful. I think it's instructive when it reflects on the prior permit there. I actually don't think the prior permit is particularly useful to the current contemplation, in that it's not overnight accommodation. It's not a facility where people would you know, leave a vehicle for 24 hours or 12 hours even. And I think it's the kind of offering that our community needs from the perspective of smoothing out and creating attractions for visitors year round. You know, this is the kind of attraction that, whether it's summer or whether it's winter or in between, you know, it is the kind of thing that will attract visitors. And I've always believed that we should be focusing on quality, not quantity, when it comes to holding events and having things that attract visitors. And I think having things that are permanently in place that are not seasonal, year round. You know, this is the kind of project that stands out for me.
Thank you. Any other commentary? Okay. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you. I was with Councillor Kelly when we met with the applicants on this one to have a discussion even prior to application going in, just to gauge an understanding of what community type of sentiment around these types of things might be, and you know, there wasn't opinions given, but more of a strategic direction of these are the people to ask and talk to, and the process in council that you need to follow. So I tend to agree with Councillor Kelly on this one. I think that personally, this is the location for something like this. It's central, it's walking distance, it's part of the CBD business district. It's a point of difference that we haven't had before. And I struggle a little bit on the car parking waiver here. Yes, I don't like the fact that there's car parking waivers, that they can even apply for them in the CBD district. However, we don't have anything in place that says that they can't. And I personally don't think that we should be using them specifically as an example of saying no, they can't have it, when there's been recent bills that we've said that they can. So personally, I don't hold strong on that specific point myself, but note that this is going to be capped for the decision to be made.
Any other comments? Yes, certainly. Councillor Nicholas.
Yep, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and go right through the middle of this dilemma. So I think it is in the right place, but I think it's in the wrong format. And I do think that parking is really important. Even when I had little kids, which is a long time ago, it was hard to find a car park down there near the major playground. So I think if there's then the bathhouse there without parking, it's only going to be worse. And the other concern is the land tenure and the balcony not being fully enclosed or fully on private land. So yep, no, fabulous project, fabulous place, but it just isn't quite right.
Ms Cook, I know you're acting director and you haven't been in the role long. I'm assuming that there's been a lot of toing and froing between the planners and the actual applicant here to see whether or not they might change some of their requirements, in particular the waiver of bicycle parking. I thought that was quite strange. And whether or not they would consider the removal of that back deck if a planning permit was to be, well, if there was going to be a recommendation of an approval for the planning permit. I'm not sure whether you can actually answer this at the moment.
So thank you, Mr Mayor. I need to refer to a planning officer to understand the exact content of communications between the applicant and the planning officer. However, I do know that this is at 247 statutory days, so there would have been there has been a significant period of time that has gone into this application. Sure. So there would have been some backwards and forwards between the planning department and the applicant. I'm just unaware of the direct content of that.
So I suppose then the question arises, the actual reason for being at VCAT is for a failure to have a decision. Failure to determine. It's nothing to do with the fact that there's no car parking or that there's a deck over someone else's land.
So the reason for a report to come to council now is so that we can be clear on the reasons that council would have been, officers would have recommended for a refusal, so that can be considered. So the reasons the officers would have recommended a refusal on this application was about the car parking waiver and the encroachment of private land onto public land.
Right.
That's not been addressed.
Thank you. Any other questions or commentary regarding this? No? Back to Councillor Janus. Anything final?
I won't go into the matter. It's the report is quite clear as to the reasons for the refusal. Don't disagree in relation to the concept, but there are other items that have come to light that need further work, I think. And as I say, I don't disagree with the concept at all. But the report to me says what I need to know to make a decision.
Thank you. The recommendations are there. Could I have a show of hands for those in favour of those current recommendations? Could I have a show of hands for those against? We do have consensus Thank you. Councillor Hughes, did you hear the question?
Oh, she lost it.
She's frozen, right?
No, she's there.
No, she's not.
We do have a majority vote, so I think we can actually move on.
Feed isn't working.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Item 9, informal meetings of councillors. The recommendation is the summary of informal.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Keeble. Those in favour? Thank you. Item Good. Item 10, presentation of reports by delegates. Does anybody have a delegate report? I attended the MAV State Council last Friday. There were 30 motions put to the group. They were dealt with very quickly. There were 5 items that came as late motions, but they were not allowed under rules of saying no, they should have been in earlier. It was pleasing to see that the motions that have been put forward by our Heraldian group through Murrindindi were all in the 90 to 95% approved. So that was very good. It was all to do with financial assistance grants. We're behind here. I attended the
State Council 2 hours.
Friday. There were 5 minutes. Shall we wait until you get sorted? Are we better now? Thank you. All right, moving on to item 11, general business, and I'll start with Councillor Hughes.
I have.
Doesn't have any sound.
She sent me some things through.
All right, Councillor Keeble, general business.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. Just to note that it's winter still, and it doesn't feel like winter, and there has been a lack of the white stuff on the hills in the last few weeks. It's deteriorated. Just a shout out to all our businesses, second year in a row, where it's ended quickly. Maybe we'll get some more snow in September, but it doesn't look like it at this stage. Just a shout out to our businesses that are, after the landslide and all the other years and these 2 years of lack of finishing snow, it will be difficult for some of our businesses, I think. So just a shout out to them.
Thank you.
Is it a battery? Is it a battery down there for the laptop?
Battery's running low.
The battery. Councillor Prime.
I have nothing, but Kat had sent me through some congratulations from earlier when she couldn't speak.
Certainly, please, let's do that.
Just the one, congratulations from Kat. The Nick Shaw, CEO of Alpine Health, is finished up after 16 years of local service. We wish him all the luck in his next adventure at Murray Primary Health Network. So thanks for that, Kat.
Councillor Kelly.
Just one item, one question for perhaps Director Rees. Howard Park and the playground facilities, can you provide a little update on where we're at with the conditions there?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. The team have requested quotations for those repair works, so my understanding is that those will be coming back, if not to hand already, in the coming weeks. They will then result in an evaluation and an award of the works to be conducted. The Cundy Park project is slightly ahead of Howard Park, so I understand that those quotes are to hand and the team are busy working through an evaluation to award the works to be expedited.
I guess I need to hope that all quotes are within the CEO's delegation, given our potential caretaker period shortly.
Yes, we expect that they will be.
Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Nicholas.
Yeah, I know you want a quick meeting, but I've got heaps.
No.
So just to follow on from Councillor Keeble's comments, the Hobbit's been cancelled, second time in a row. So brave move, harsh move, and thoughts to that committee who worked so hard. But also the CSIRO modelling that's been around for the last at least 24 years is suggesting that by about now we'll only have month-long seasons. So that's my cup half empty for the night. Youth Awards this Friday. If you haven't got your ticket already, get it at Myrtleford, MPAC. Looking forward to that. Fabulous bunch of young people we have across the Shire. Community panel for the 2025-29 council plan is open for expressions of interest. It's a way to help shape the Shire, to contribute your understanding and passion, so put your hand up if you've got the time, the interest. Council election nominations, the same, your chance to contribute your ideas and passion to shape the Shire into the future. I'm happy to have a chat. I know Katarina is, probably any current councillor is happy to have a chat about what the role is. And that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Just a couple of quickies. I want to promote the Melbourne Cup Tour. It's coming to Dettering tomorrow. And Mary, I've forgotten the time for, I think it's 10 o'clock or something. So, I don't know if I've got the TOB going as well then. There's and it's also at Myrtleford Savoy Club 5:30 tomorrow night. And the bride as well. Okay. Thanks to the staff, I see a lot of movement there at the splash park.
Oh yeah.
At Myrtleford, soil being moved, etc. Well done. One more to go.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Mr. CEO, would you please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just follow up on Councillor Nicholas's points about the approaching council elections. If you're interested in becoming a councillor, or if you'd just like to learn about the process, then the go-to place is the Victorian Electoral Commission website. It has heaps of information. They're actually running an information session for the public. Unfortunately, only one session, and that's in Bright, but it's on the 5th of September at 6 p.m. if anyone wants to go along in person and speak to a member of the Victorian Electoral Commission about potentially how they would go through the process of nominating themselves. Nominations open at 9 a.m. on the 9th of September if there are any potentially interested candidates out there, and then they close at midday on the 17th of September. So we're getting pretty close. We're within the last 2 months of the current council. Yeah, 26th of October, 6 a.m. is the end of duty for our current councillors. So yeah, we're getting close.
And that Tuesday the 17th is when the caretaker period actually begins. So this meeting is actually the last meeting that you'll be hearing any general business. It is also the last meeting that we can accept any questions on notice or questions from the floor. So the next 2 meetings will be just a business type meeting. Now, that's item 11 done with. Item 12, motions for which notice has previously been given. There is none. Item 13, reception and reading of petitions. I do have, I'm not going to read every person's name here, but the petition itself is to Alpine Shire Council. This petition on behalf of concerned residents in Bright draws to the attention of the Alpine Shire, our town, with its incredible scenery, beautiful walk trails, pristine rivers, autumn scenery festivals and towering mountains of rubbish. For too long, beautiful Bright, public bins have gone unemptied with adequate frequency. Alpine Shire and their contractors should be the ones on top of our town's bins and not the trash. Our petition is to request A, our public bins emptied more frequently, especially during weekends, events and public schools holidays, which I think we've addressed tonight. But B, replace the current contractors with more effective ones. And sign below to express your dissatisfaction with the Alpine Shire. So I will table that petition. No doubt that will be looked into, and there'll be some discussion regarding that at the next council meeting. Thank you. Item 14, documents for sealing. We have 8 documents there tonight. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Prime, thank you.
And you ask. Go ahead.
And seconder, Councillor Janice. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried. I will call the meeting closed at exactly 8 p.m. and invite those left in the gallery, if they would like a cup of tea and a biscuit, please stay. Thank you very much for attendance.